And then Charlie Manson shows up and says, "You can't do that." I said, "Excuse me? You can't leave the group." He looked at me like with this Charlie Manson stare. It was not good. And I got out of there as quickly as I could. And on our way back to the studio at Brian's house where we were recording, I said, "Well, Dennis, you really have an interesting character on your hands now."
In September 1968, at their private studio, the Beach Boys recorded the song Never Learn Not to Love. The track was issued as the B-side to their Bluebirds Over the Mountains single, released December of the same year. All seems fairly normal until you realise Never Learn Not to Love was an altered version of a song written by Charles Manson. 6 or so months after the song's release, the Manson family would begin their series of at least 9 murders, including Hollywood actress Sharon Tate. So yeah, the Beach Boys in the late 60s actually recorded a song written by a murderous cult leader. How the f*** did that happen? Hi, I'm Adam. Welcome back to Music Mongoose. Manson stands out as the most infamous cult leader in history, leaving a lasting scar on Hollywood after the brutal murder of actress Sharon Tate by the Manson family in 1969. Interestingly though, Manson initially dreamed of becoming a musician before veering off onto a much darker path. I will state at this point, by the way, that there are a load of different accounts of this story. In fact, in 1976, Dennis Wilson, the member of the Beach Boys who had forged the connection with Charles Manson, said, "As long as I live, I'll never talk about that." This video, therefore, is what I believe to be the most likely sequence of events, based on the extensive research I've done. So that's a disclaimer. So, sometime in the summer of 1968, the drummer of the Beach Boys, Dennis Wilson, picked up 2 female hitchhikers, Patricia Krenwinkel and Ella Jo Bailey. These women were of course followers of Manson and used this hitchhiking technique regularly to recruit new family members. And being the little promiscuous devil that he was, he brought them home with him. And I'm sure they had a very lovely time together. What Dennis thought would be a one-night stand, though, turned into a full-blown nightmare. Patricia and Ella had gone back to Manson following these events and told him about what had happened. Manson was positively thrilled. His dream of becoming a successful musician had just gotten that bit closer. He had a genuine connection to a member of the Beach Boys. At the same time, Dennis had left LA with work commitments. When he arrived home, he found an interesting scene awaiting him. You see, Ella and Patricia had moved into his home, along with Manson and a bunch of other family members as well. But remember, Manson wasn't a murdering lunatic at this point. Well, maybe he was a lunatic, but he hadn't killed anyone at that point. Not that we know of. And, as he had done to countless people before, he very quickly charmed the pants off of Dennis Wilson, literally by appealing to his weak spot for women. Dennis subsequently became enthralled with Charles Manson and was happy to share his home with him. Dennis had unfortunately pretty much become part of the cult at this point, and he wanted to share this new passion with his bandmates. His bandmates, while not in agreement with the beliefs of the group, did attend a dinner party at Wilson's house with several Manson family members in attendance.
We had dinner, and then they adjourned to the den, and Charlie turned on a strobe light and passed out. It was supposed to be LSD, which I never had, so I declined. And I didn't join in that party. We were the only people. Bruce Johnson and I went for dinner at their invitation, and we were the only people with clothing on. It was rather unusual. So I left. I didn't get involved in that whole mess.
Dennis Wilson at this point was pretty much paying for Charles Manson's lifestyle with his Beach Boys cash. He was covering their food, their transport costs, even their medical bills for penicillin to cover their gonorrhea problems. He was unfortunately that far deluded. Now, before we go any further, I just want to say if you are enjoying the video, I'd really appreciate it if you clicked the like button below because it helps spread this video to more people on YouTube. And subscribe to the channel as well, the button's down below. As you can see by this, only 0.1% of people who watch my videos are actually subscribed. How mad is that? If that's you, then make sure to click subscribe below. You'll never miss any of my videos. I put a new one out every Friday. Back to it then. Mike Love, reflecting on this period, remembers how Dennis unknowingly invited Satan into our midst. Love also wrote in his memoir, Dennis was all too happy to allow Manson and his girls to move in, use his charge cards, take his clothes, eat his food, even drive his Mercedes. Manson, after all, had something for Dennis, a stable of young women who catered to his every desire. Now, with all this going on, it was only a matter of time really before Manson would worm his way into Dennis's musical career, given Manson's dream of becoming a musician. And he did this by offering Dennis a song he'd written. It was titled Cease to Exist, which is very bleak sounding, isn't it? Not very Beach Boys, if you ask me. If you're gonna pitch a song to the Beach Boys, at least read the room, right? This is the band that did Fun, 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 Good Vibrations and Surfin' USA. Do you really think they're gonna be interested in a song called Cease to Exist? Luckily, Dennis came to this realization too. Though he saw potential in the song, he needed to alter it heavily to suit the Beach Boys. He changed the track from a bluesy number to a more classic Beach Boys ditty, also changing the title and some of the lyrics. It was renamed Never Learn to Love. Yeah, that sounds more Beach Boys. Dennis now felt it was ready and offered it to the group to be recorded. Now, it's important to note that Dennis said that he was the only writing credit on the song. He'd not mentioned Charles Manson at all. In fact, Mick Love wouldn't learn the truth of the song's origins until much later, long after the song was released. When Manson heard the song with all its changes and of course without his credit, he was furious. According to the songwriter Van Dyke Parks, in response to the song, Manson gave Dennis Wilson a single bullet, saying, "Every time you look at it, I want you to think how nice it is. Your kids are still safe." And it was conveniently around this time that Dennis thought, I don't want to be in the Manson family anymore. I'm going to try and leave. He decided not to contact the police because he was worried what Charles Manson would do. Instead, he was forced to simply move home. At his new address, however, he discovered a note that read, "You can't get away from me." Dennis was never truly free until he actually confronted Charles Manson and punched the living daylights out of him in front of his followers, reducing Charles Manson to tears. An embarrassed Manson decided to let Dennis go after this. Just months after the release of the song, the Manson family would commit horrific crimes, most notably the helter-skelter murders, which killed 7 people, including actress Sharon Tate. According to Mick Love, Wilson was shocked and consumed by guilt until his death in 1983. It had to be a tough burden for him to carry for the rest of his life, Love concluded. Manson believed that had he been credited for the song, it could have been a career-changing moment for him. It might have led him down a completely different path. At the same time as all this, across the pond in the 60s and 70s, the Rolling Stones were making a name for themselves in Britain. Did you know, though, that Mick Jagger and Keith Richards had an intense feud that almost prematurely ended the Stones? You can click here to watch that video next, and I'll catch you next time on Music Mongoose. Alright then, bye bye!